and gentlemen, we are starting our next press briefing. Ukraine is restoring the national memory state policy. How and what for? We'll be talking about that with Volodymyr Vyatovych, the director of the Ukrainian National Memory Institute, Alina Shpak, first deputy director, Alexandr Zinchenko, Volodymyr Tylishchak, the deputy directors of the Ukrainian National Memory Institute. Good afternoon, dear journalists. We will start with quite recent events. 2 days ago, Putin publicly was talking about the professional qualities of Goebbels, the General of Information War of Hitler, who was recognized as the person who was involved into the crimes against humanity. That wasn't the mistake, that was characteristic for our president, ex-president. That is like the first recognition by the leader of the Russian state of propaganda and so on. Putin as a politician is very sincere in his likings. You can laugh at that. That could have been ridiculous, unless the fact that these things are implemented into life and practically they touch upon neighboring countries, and now they affect Ukraine, especially in respect to Crimea and Donbass. I'm sure that such politician as Vladimir Putin wouldn't be able to get realized in the normal society, but only in the society that forgot the past, forgot about Joseph Stalin and Adolf Hitler. In Ukraine, we had also many politicians who wanted the citizens of Ukrainian state to forget about what could happen to them when they allowed to manipulate state politicians, when they will be deprived of freedom. One of such politicians, the last president of Ukraine, Yanukovych, who becoming the president, believed that the society will forget, and this way he will be using many criminal methods of the previous communist regime. But even today we believe that after the fall of Yanukovych we have no right to get relaxed, because getting back totalitarian past, the danger of that has not disappeared, especially if we take into account that that danger is supported by the aggressive neighbor, where this totalitarian past will achieve its triumph. That is why we are saying that Ukraine requires treatment by memory. Via this process of treatment on the post-communist countries past, and in order to some president or the prime minister do not start thinking that you can shoot at citizens, put in prison your political opponents. For that, such a policy of overcoming totalitarian past was conducted. What does that policy mean? The policy of overcoming the totalitarian past, the policy of the national memory. We will do it so that every person who wants has access to the facts about our past. The conclusions is something that everyone can make, but the ability to make such conclusions is the task for the society. We will tell to the society, to people, what's happening with the societies where the regime doesn't take into account the human rights. 20 years ago, we had many people who were the victims of totalitarian regime who could talk about such awful crimes. Now the time has passed. There are less and less people like that. And our task is to talk about that, and that is the task of the state. We will preserve the museums, the memorials, where even in generation every Ukrainian will feel how two totalitarian regimes were taking away the hope for the future from us. In Europe, via these methods, the peoples who had similar history as Ukrainians were forming very important immunity against violation of human rights. The choice is the society can make the choice, but the state has to work on the general ideology. The society, the state should say that what happened in the past will never be repeated again. Recently, Mr. Yatsenyuk's government said that on behalf of the state of Ukraine, said it in such a way that by governmental decision. There was an instrument selected the institute that I headed. In this time, we managed to achieve very important changes. Ukraine managed to step away from the Soviet ideals, and we were respecting the Second World War, just remembering about warriors. For the first time, we were marking the end of the Second World War, like in Europe on the 8th of May, but not on the 9th of May. Also, the new symbol of memory was introduced, the red poppy flower, which became the alternative to Russian St. George ribbon. Together with Crimean Tatars, we also organized some actions which were also dedicated to deportation of Crimean Tatars.
Yeah.
And that is the Crimea, just as the Crimea, the Russian authorities were trying to make Crimea.
Ми розпочали на урядовому рівні.
We started a serious discussion about the necessity to condemn crimes of the communist in parallel to those surface in the country as to condemn this Communist Party of Ukraine. We initiated very important initiatives which should be a memory. We should two events which happened recently in the Institute of National Memory. There is an archive of this oral history of Maidan. We have 143 records, and we will continue. We will develop a museum of Maidan. We hope that we'll build it recently. There is a decision of the government of this week to return the Institute of National to make it a public institution. They understand the importance of this on the level of the state, and with these new powers, the institute will receive a chance to be more systemic as a state instrument in the policy of overcoming the totalitarian past. We're responsible to build a new team which should work in a new way with new tasks in front of the institute, and accordingly I am honored to introduce my deputies and people who will be responsible for certain departments in that institute, and for the institute to become that instrument. So the first wall, I would like to introduce Alina Shpak, who is the first deputy of the director of the Institute of National Memory, and who holds the position of the deputy, who did a lot to open secret archives of KGB, and who will receive that work from on the position, on this new position. Good afternoon. Very briefly, what we are going to do very recently, and I'll tell you about that archive we would like to create by the Institute of National Memory, and that archive of national memory. Why archive? The base of any research, any study, is documents, and we have those archives and those documents in our archive. We speak about specific documents, millions of cases, and in different institutions from Security Service and Ministry of Interior and the Ministry in Defense and Intelligence Service, and some documents in other structures. Documents about our past, about the past of our state, Ukraine, and documents are very specific because we speak about documents of Soviet special services, KGB and KVD, and all that structure of such services. What documents are they? Why are they important? The documents, it's about human life, but it's the issue of archives. It's about shells with cases, and on those documents there are 25 names and one word, kill. And instructions, for example, how to fill massive graves, and to fill it with concrete, and to tell that in people contaminated with infection. This is about how to move ethnic minorities, like about Crimean Tatars, and so those documents which open lots of give lots of answers why we live now like we live. The task of a state is to give full access to those documents, but there are very serious problems. 86% of studied people, they say that they had access to such documents. Why? Some of them because of logistical, because documents are in a bad shape, they're all over the place. If we speak about security, so those are classified, and there is a physical problem with physical access, and like the experience in Eastern Europe, those all documents should be at one place. That should be a civic. It should not be a special service. It should be an institution which is responsible for studying and for full access. And this is our principal position. There should be full access to such documents. That's why we say that we initiate the issue of setting up such one archive of documents of special services, and why we hold all those documents. We believe that is possible because there is experience of Poland in 3 months. They did a lot. They had a state program, a state campaign, and they brought archives together in 3 months to one place, Polish Institute of National Memory. So it's possible. The second aspect, legal obstacles, and there are lots of legal restrictions to such documents. We still protect those who are destroying us, our people, and so we don't want to have the truth about them. So we started to develop a special law which will regulate access to such documents, and the way of access, and how possible to use, how such documents could be used. So such an archive, this is a primary issue for us, and we'll work on that very soon. I'd like to remind that Ukrainian Institute of National Memory was set up in 2006, and it worked like a body of the governments and the state public agency until 2010, and then President Yanukovych liquidated that status for the Institute of National Memory, and then he liquidated the policy of the tasks for humanitarian dimension, and they were preparing to these special operations of Russian forces. And now I would like to invite Mr. Tylishchak, who was in the first Institute of National Memory, and he was working on the issue of famine, and now he's a deputy director in our newly created institute. I would like to briefly outline some directions our institute will work on. First of all, we'll return the status of a public agency. It will be more active in the realization of the national policy on memory. It's not a secret for anyone that in our country there was no such a system of national memory, and the state didn't pay any attention to that. But on the other hand, they act and they produce many scientists, journalists, for whom the issue of historic memory is not something strange. So we need to unite scientists, we need people, journalists on the issue of learning and informing about historic truth of Ukraine. So at the request of the government, we develop a program, a public program to support the study of historic past and of Ukraine. We hope and we have plans that we will get grants for studies, and that we will make documentaries on this, and there could be many other things can be done in this field. And that's our first and important task, to be a united center for different initiatives and realization of the state policy, memory policy. The other direction is to participate in overcoming results of totalitarian regime in Ukraine. We started a broad social discussion about the legacy of communist and totalitarian system, and we had a roundtable about crimes of communism in July. In August, we plan to have one more, and we started to prepare a national report on crimes of totalitarian system.
The component of that process of cleaning up from the totalitarian past is the liquidation of the symbols of totalitarianism. We started gathering the information about the totalitarianism monuments which are in Ukraine. We will be also creating a special park of the Soviet period where we are planning to exhibit the monuments of the Soviet totalitarian regime. Also, we would like to take care of all the places of burial of those who were killed for Ukraine. And by that we mean those people who gave their lives for Ukraine in the past and now who are giving their lives for the national sovereignty and integrity of Ukraine. We also believe that in Ukraine we need to create the national pantheon as the sacred place, which would be the place to pay tribute to the national heroes of Ukraine. We want this place to become the center for patriotic education of young people, for bringing up new Ukrainian patriotism. That is what we are working on now. These things, our work will not be limited only to these things. And I would also like to give the floor to Alexandr Zinchenko, who will be coordinating the most important work in the Institute Information Educational work. Alexandr Zinchenko is the editor of the most popular, probably, website in Ukraine, Historic Memory. Good afternoon. Very recently, people asked me, what should the Institute of National Memory be doing in Ukraine? Briefly, this is difficult to explain. In such situations, I give such an example of two maps. There is a map where Lenin fell, and the map of the place where Lenin did not fall, where Lenin is still there. People are dying. Where Lenin fell, that's the places where peace is, and that is what the Institute of Memory should be doing, should be achieving peace all over the territory of Ukraine. But there's only one way to do that, developing the dialogue. There should be no dictatorship. There should be discussion bilateral. Decommunization means forgiveness via redemption. Those who believe that redemption, those who confession via confession, and the dialogue could be built only around that problem, we believe. So my task in this situation in the Institute is to develop this dialogue. What are the methods we can understand? That is creating certain seminars discussing difficult issues of the past, also organization of media campaigns, similar to what we organized before we were commemorating the memory of those who perished in the Second World War, and I would be happy if we were able to implement some dreams. One of them is starting the first chronicles, illustrated chronicles, which we call memory.ua. That is a working name, but I hope that in the beginning this will be a quarterly publication, then hopefully a monthly publication. The audience, first of all, will be school and university students. This chronicle will be delivered to every military unit. That is our first dream. The second dream is related to my native city, Kharkiv, and I would be happy if we manage to organize a very powerful center of examining totalitarian regime in Kharkiv, the House of Terror, where there was the prison where in the 30s a lot of Ukrainians, Russians, Polish were shot. That is the place which in 1941 was just ruined, and now it's forgotten. We need to create some center there similar to what is done in Budapest or in Berlin, the print house of terror, or like in other countries of Central and Eastern Europe. These are my dreams. Thank you. Thank you for attention, and now we hope that we briefly managed to introduce our Institute of National Memory, and we hope that if you have questions, we will answer what you're interested in. I believe that if the Institute of National Memory was given to that institute earlier than the 9th of July, then probably we would have no these awful events in Ukraine taking place. I would like to react to the speed of changes. This is in the process which is not quick. It is very slow. We shouldn't expect quick changes. I believe that the Institute of National Memory will lose its significance in 35, 40 years after 2 generations. Sergei Kutnyakov, the member of the Society of Military Historians of Ukraine. The question to Volodymyr. I did not look at the website for the year of the Institute. I hope that the information there will be regularly updated. I will start from proposals. It is very important for understanding, or in order to treat historic amnesty, it is important to create historic clubs on different periods of the history of Ukraine and the world, so that it is at your institute, so that the public, the students are involved into that. Maybe it would be important to have branches all over Ukraine of such clubs. And the first question to you as a professional in history, the professional on information security of the country, how do you assess the information component of ATO? There are many complaints. Today at the briefing of the National Security and Defense Council, the representative of the council complained that Russian journalists are shooting the battles and are giving such information, anti-Ukrainian information. What do we do with that? First of all, I'm not a specialist on information security. I'm a historian, but at the same way, as a person who is working on the issues of the information policy, I agree that information policy related to ATO was not satisfactory, but as a user of this information, I see very serious changes which took place in the latest months or weeks. Now we get more information, we learn more, thanks to the Ukraine Crisis Media Center and other entities like that. And those leaders of ATO have the opportunity to talk about what's happening and explain to the public what's happening. Thank God there is this dialogue. It's difficult to build it. Why it is difficult? Because in information space, like in other space, nothing was done or everything was done to destroy it. Now, first, certain entities are being restored, and after they are restored, via them we'll be able to send signals or messages. Now, the question about website. Here's my assistant, Tatiana, and she's working on the website, and in the last 100 days, we have more information on the website than in the previous 4 years. The site has become the platform for information and discussion. It's not perfect from the technical point of view. We'll do it differently. Olexandr Zinchenko, who's one of the most successful historic sites, will start working on it, and I hope that this site will become a very important and powerful instrument of information. As to the different historic clubs, will support it, but we need to understand that the task of the Institute is not to replace different civil society initiatives. Doesn't mean that there should be such initiatives like Memorial and others. That means that the Institute should actively cooperate with these organizations, give them certain state resources, because we are the state entity, and the Institute is like a state producer center, and its task is to support the civil society initiatives, and the civil society initiatives play a very important role. The cooperation of the civil society and the state is what worked in other post-communist countries.
A question to Alexander. I agree with you that, well, monuments of Lenin are still there, according to moral standards of the nation. There is more dead people than from the fourth reactor of Chernobyl. How do you assess how realistic it is to prohibit the Communist Party of Ukraine? Because some experts believe that the claim is not perfect. It's just an effort to threaten Communist Party MPs in the parliament, and also prohibition of symbols of totalitarian regimes like in Moldova and other countries of the world. So what do you think about that? I would say this. Monuments to Lenin is not that reactor which gives a background. That's a marker. That represents a certain status of public conscience, and that marker tells us that in that region there is a problem. How that can be solved? Probably through education, because many people don't know a lot. They don't know a lot from the history of the family, and they don't know how many relatives and that communist regime destroyed and killed. So we can speak through education, that's clear. Through media campaigns, we should reach heart and mind of people. And after we succeed, I hope that monuments of Lenin will not walk anywhere on their own. But in those regions, the situation will change. As to prospects with the future of that claim, I'm not a lawyer. I'm a historian and a journalist, publicist, and that's why I believe that the most I cannot assess from legal point of view the future in the court of that claim against Communist Party of Ukraine. But if we speak about the situation in general, The main answer is we need not just a legal status change, but an attitude to communism. We need to understand that communism in Bolsheviks as a Bolshevik variant is not less but bigger evil than nationalism, and so understand that factor is the base for communist ideology not to be renewed, not to come to our land again. Is there any other question? Well, last question. From Crisis Center, and I'm a historian by profession, and two questions. Organizing question. Do you have plans to set up branches on the level of regions? You have to regional offices, because we have such a system in Poland. The second question about cooperation with other post-Soviet countries, because, for example, in Riga and Latvia, there is a museum of occupation, and there is a group of historians, sociologists who are working on the issue of historic memory. Thank you very much for your question. To answer this question, yes, we'll try to build the system of our offices, and like in Poland, we would like to have it in every regional center. Our office, but that's for the future. The close future. But now Odessa, Kharkiv, Lviv, at least this is for the nearest future. As to international cooperation, and I hope Alina will give an answer to that question. Thank you very much. As to international cooperation, yes, we believe that the issue of national memory and condemning communism is not an issue for one country. This is an issue for the world, because that was the evil for the whole world. That's why international cooperation with institutions, which are like Ukrainian National Institute of Memory, will take place. We started to work with the Institute of National Memory from Poland. And also we have negotiations, and we would like to send an application to participate in a platform, European platform of understanding and conscience. That's a network of institutions which are similar to our institution, with the main office in Prague, and members more than 40 institutes of national memory, museums, and they are members of that platform. And we have a lot of people. We know a lot of people in that network. We will participate in that network, and with joint efforts, we'll work on that issue too. Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for your work. Thank you for coming to our office despite the bad weather. Our next speakers will start their presentations in 2 minutes. Thank you.